Live.
And we're live. Welcome to all of you. We're here tonight with David from KnownOrigin and Signalnoise, James White. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you very much, both of you, for having me. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be hanging out with you both. It's going to be real fun.
It's good to hang out, man.
Absolutely.
Wonderful to be here tonight with you both. And yes, I'm live streaming tonight from a new setup. I'm in Rome, in Italy. And whereabout are you from, James?
I'm originally from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, Canada. Which side is it on? Right here. And but I recently, a year ago, relocated to Newcastle upon Tyne over in the United Kingdom. So I'm a transplanted Canadian that's returned to the country that I'm from. Historically, something like that.
That sounds about right. Okay. Yeah. And David, I will pass it on to you now for the usual introduction to KnownOrigin. And what about you streaming on from tonight?
Manchester, UK. All good.
Wow, great. Cool. So after you, David, for the intro on to KnownOrigin.
So here we are again, behind the screens. My name's David Moore. I'm the co-founder of KnownOrigin. KnownOrigin is a digital arts platform built on the Ethereum blockchain, and essentially we find and showcase awesome artists and they sell their artwork as verified digital limited editions. Today we're live streaming with Signalnoise, aka James White. I've known James almost 10 years. I've known of James almost 10 years. I first caught his work when I saw these mission patches going around on Instagram and was blown away by just the craft. And James is, outside of the crypto scene, is known as a bit of a master of his craft. So when we launched in 2017, I reached out to James, told him about this new world I was going into. And I know that he's been keeping an eye on the space since then. And we finally got him onto KO recently. And sometimes it takes seeing your peers kind of step into something new and kind of make a bit of a success from it. So we know that Brendan Dawes kind of helped nudge a few of these new artists into the scene. So I'm really looking forward to tonight. I know that James and Gavin are really good friends, and this is my opportunity to work with some serious talent like James and Gavin and Brendan. So I'm really excited to see kind of where you guys go with the conversation tonight. I will jump off the stream and I'll be tweeting out some of the stuff that you guys are talking about. And if any questions come into KnownOrigin_.io, I will try and get them back to the team and get Serena and James talking and answering those questions. So without further ado, I will hand back over to Serena, and you guys have a great evening, and I'll be on live answering questions and kind of sharing stuff. So have a good one, man.
Thanks,
wonderful. Brother. Thank you so much. Thank you, David. See you. Okay, here we are. I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody who's watching live. So many people already sent comments. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Please feel free to send questions, comments as we go through this live. This is going to be a very open conversation, isn't it, James?
Absolutely, yeah. We're free-forming. We're free-forming it.
Freestyling. So yes. Let's crack off by asking you, who's James White and how did you come up with your artistic persona? What's the journey been?
Yeah, artistic persona. Well, I have a deck prepared to show some stuff about my backstory. However, I'll just touch on this before I get into that. Yeah, my name is James White, and I go by Signalnoise online, and I've become known for doing work inspired by the 1980s, which is my childhood. And it is, I try to capture the awesome and ridiculous nature of stuff from the 1980s and the kind of unbridled enthusiasm of childhood, and try to infuse that into my art as much as I can to I guess my whole trajectory is to try to make art that looks like it was really fun to make. And that's led me to working with a lot of clients all over the world, which has been super fun and a lot of luck, I guess.
Yes, amazing. Thank you. I already see some people asking questions already,
Absolutely.
which is wonderful. And somebody, actually, Gavin, was asking, my question is, what's your favorite shade of pink? Which I think is quite relevant to your artist persona, right?
My favorite shade of pink is hot. Hot pink. Fluorescent pink. And it could equate to what's behind me right there. And if pink could be glowing, maybe that's my favorite shade of pink. I don't know if that is a specific shade. I'm gonna have to call Pantone to see if glowing pink is actually a numerical value, but that would be my favorite shade of pink. And I know that Gavin is also a connoisseur of using pink in his work, so I know that me and him will have many debates over what the best shade of pink is.
Yes. And there's actually one more. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
Oh man, superpower. Now, okay, I'll give you two. I'll give you like the innocent one and the kind of darker one. The innocent one, of course, is flight. Everybody wants to fly, and I just want to fly around because I think that's the great place to, and the best place to clear your head is up in the clouds, right? So I think that's the number one superpower. But the number two, the darker one, if anybody here in the chat room has read Preacher, Jesse Custer, the main character, his superpower, or I don't know if it's super, it's a power. He can make anybody do whatever he wants with just telling them, which is so dark. And it's like, man, I would never have to get a can of soda from the fridge anymore. I can get somebody else to send my mail for me. It's just like menial tasks, right? Just the most boring stuff. So yeah, I think those would be my two favorite superpowers. But if I had to choose one, I'd go for flight.
Yeah, why not? That's an awesome power to have, right? You can go anywhere you want, overlooking, and yes.
Absolutely. You can freak people out in airplanes too. Just kind of go by like, hey, then take off. Superman like.
Wonderful. I guess we're all starting to know you now, and look at that. And it's so good to hear from your background and to know what you like and what's your favorite superpower. But I would love also to know more about your actual story and how did you start creating art, and whether that has always been within you or how that has developed. So I know you've prepared a few slides for us. So maybe we can start off from there, and then we'll get going with some more questions. And everybody watching, feel free to jump in, ask questions, share comments. We're here.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll just jump over to my Keynote here and I'm ready to go. Just let me know when you can see that, Serena.
We can see it now.
All right, awesome. I'll just jump into it. I got a little bit of a story to tell, and it's basically like Serena said, it's my origin story as an artist, I guess. So as we said, I go by the name Signalnoise, which is my online moniker and my studio. And this is me and my handsome family in 1981. That's me in the front row in that fabulous brown sweater. And this is essentially when I started drawing. This is when I started my career, if you will. I was a nerd from a very young age, and I started drawing basically as soon as I could hold a pencil. This is one of the first drawings I ever did. This is Superman holding a giant pumpkin that I drew on the back of one of my worksheets in like junior kindergarten. And this is my first still life, if you will. I started drawing my toys. This is a Dragonflyer from the Sector's toy line that I drew when I was about 7 years old. And growing up, my childhood best friend, Mike Field, we were into everything that typical kids in the 1980s were into. So He-Man was my favorite franchise, my favorite cartoon of all time. Transformers, G.I. Joe, and all of this stuff would inform the stuff that I was drawing. So here's a G.I. Joe dude. Video games, we're both super into video games. Super Nintendo is my console of choice. These are all games that I owned. And I was a subscriber to Nintendo Power magazine, and that stuff would inform the stuff that I was drawing, my creativity, my inspiration, whatever. So here's Link from Zelda. I got Fulgore from Killer Instinct. I was an aspiring Nintendo Power cover artist, so that's Donkey Kong and some Street Fighter dudes and Mario and stuff. Movies were a huge part of my childhood, and especially stuff that was into the nerdy pop culture stuff that I was into. So Ninja Turtles and Batman. And what I would do is go and see these movies in the theater and then run home and then try to draw the characters from memory. Just have a pictorial reference to what they looked like because it was pre-internet, right? This would have been like the late 80s. So Ninja Turtles.
I'm actually curious to ask everyone here watching tonight if you used to do the same, because I did the same. I used to go to the movies and watch all of these super characters with crazy powers and try and imitate them, while playing with friends and also drawing, and see how that superpower looked on paper. How would you draw that? So it was quite an experience. So just a question out there for anybody watching.
Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it. Like, you really wanted to capture the power and the excitement of what you saw on screen when you got home, and the only way as kids that we could do that was pencil and marker, right? So yeah, running home and drawing my characters I would do that all the time. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool that you said that you did the same thing. I'm glad to hear that other kids did that.
Yeah, pre-internet, I think, was quite radical, and it's interesting to see how different people sort of approach that era and how you're actually taking that experience with you into the new cutting edge era.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very ephemeral. It was a very ephemeral time when you were a kid. So yeah, and I'll dive into some of that stuff too. It's yeah, very fun. Wrestling was another thing that we were huge into, and I don't know so much that it's big over here and in Europe, but in North America, if you're a kid under 10, like, you were into wrestling. And me and Mike we were into wrestling video games, so that was a cool crossover. And we collected toys. And the photo on the right-hand side is the Ultimate Warrior, and it has no real business being in this presentation other than I love it. It's basically my Mona Lisa. I think it's the most beautiful photo ever taken, and he's such a great character design. And character design is something that I'm going to be talking about a lot. So when you're a kid and you're into wrestling, you inevitably start making up your own wrestlers. That's what me and Mike did, and we would roll dice and have them fight one another. It was lots of fun. Comic books were a big part of my childhood, early 90s Image comics specifically. And these are all comics that I still have. They're in behind me in the background once we cut back to the camera. But all of these comic books me and Mike collected, and we would end up drawing the characters from those pages. And very quickly after this, we would end up making up our own, and it got a little bit weird. But we ended up fine-tuning our drawing styles and making up these, again, just making up our own little worlds, our own little universes of characters. And that would continue right up to this day. And that's something I'm going to touch on later on. And yeah, even to this day, like, this is my Inktober project from last year. And it's 31 drawings of Image comic book characters. And so I'm still drawing these characters even to this day, 25 years later or whatever. So just a little bit of education history, I suppose. In 1995, I enrolled and graduated from graphic design at a local community college in Truro, Nova Scotia, Canada. In 1998, I took a course in interactive technology, which taught me how to make a website. Basically, they taught me a lot of other stuff, but making a website was a big one in 1998. And I got scooped up into the web industry immediately after that. And for like a decade, I worked as a website designer and kind of a branding designer, but I kind of faked my branding and design stuff, but I was mostly a web designer. And it was great. I enjoyed most of it, but it was never really my first love. My first love was drawing and just making art on my own accord. So my personal work started picking up steam. And then in 2010, I ended up starting the Signalnoise studio. I went freelance, and I've been freelance ever since. And there's my logo again. And these are the clients that I kind of worked with in the last 10 years, which was super fun. And it was an honor to work with every one of these people. And I sort of pulled out just a few a few projects that I've worked on over the years. I was the first one to do the alternative art movie poster for the movie Drive. And I worked with UbiSoft on Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. I did the logo and the box art for that video game. I also worked on Trials of the Blood Dragon. That was kind of an official / non-official sequel to Blood Dragon. And I worked as a consulting art director on that video game, which was a lot of fun, doing all these crazy kind of neon blood splatters and that kind of stuff. I worked with Twitch to do some marketing materials for them. That was a lot of fun. I was hired to do some character designs for the Lego movie sequel, which was a lot of fun. I was one of the first people that were hired to work on it when they were writing the script. This was in 2015. And I did a lot of character designs for the movie. And it was just a lot of fun kind of taking the logo or the Lego body type and trying to just get as creative with that constraint as I could. I'm a big fan of working within within boundaries and trying to see how creative you can get within that space. And that was a really good one. And they gave me all kinds of briefs, and I made up all these crazy, colorful characters. A lot of fun.
These are amazing. Sorry, I think we should pose on that, because I think these characters are so fascinating and so creative in a way. Yeah, especially these ones. Like, reminds me of like a mermaid and a unicorn. I don't know. Do they have any names, or have you thought about that?
They do, yeah. This guy was, if anybody has seen the movie, this was Rex Dangervest. That was his name. So all of these characters are wearing vests of various degrees. And it was heavily inspired by Rob Schrab was the director, the first director at the time. And he's the guy that hired me. And I know him through the comic book scene, through his comic Scud the Disposable Assassin, which I absolutely loved when I was a teenager. We ended up kind of conversing on Twitter, and then like about a year later, he hired me because he was tapped to direct the Lego Movie sequel, and which was crazy. Like, it was just such a surreal experience to not only be talking to Rob, who I was a huge fan of, but also working on this. So he threw me the perfect pitch of like, Rex Dangervest should be an 80s action hero. So we dove into Rambo, Han Solo, Snake Plissken from Escape from New York, and there's a couple of other references from 80s action movies that we really tried to dive into. And these were wrestlers that kind of influenced. You'll see the guy on the far right here looks like Randy the Macho Man Savage. And this design, I actually, it's going to appear somewhere else later on in our chat.
Interesting.
Yeah, and these were a lot of fun. These ones were kind of developed to look like ski suits. From the 90s, like all the bright wild colors. And this is actually, you were right, it's her name is Princess Merpony. So you were close. Mermaid and a pony stuck together, which was really fun, and again a really good interesting brief to have, because it's so outside of my wheelhouse. Lots of fun. And these ones are the same character, Princess Merpony, but he said, like, go underwater Mad Max. And I was all about it, so I kind of threw these together, and these were a lot of fun.
That gets a sense of that.
Yeah,
I love it. I love that cross reference.
Yeah, thank you. These were a lot of fun to do, and I don't know how much of this stuff, because it was so early in the development of the movie, I don't know how much of this actually ended up on screen. Probably very little, but again, these were just so much fun to work on that, and it's great to have kicking around if I ever want to, pull a design from this pile and then kind of make it into something else. So. Yeah, lots of fun. So I designed a couple of posters for Metallica, their World Wired tour, and I did this through my buddy Tim Doyle, Nakatomi Inc. over in Austin, Texas, and they also hired me to do the simulation theory tour poster for Muse. That was a lot of fun too. And again, these are character designs. These characters don't exist anywhere, so I kind of like pulled on my favorite influence and my favorite character designs and kind of designed characters that would reside on.
Yeah. I was going to ask you whether you had that communication with the band, or how did that go in terms of creating a poster, or whether these, as you said, are characters that sort of were familiar with your creative learning and characters that you loved, and so how much actually the music has influenced the creation of the poster.
It wasn't so much the music directly, especially with Metallica. It was more so looking at their previous materials and trying to figure out what their visual language was, which they like their skulls, they like their horns, they like chains, they like these like kind of, they're a metal band. So it's like these badass kind of elements, but then trying to take those, develop a kind of tough looking character, but then turning the color palette on its head, because they have a lot of black and white stuff, and sometimes gold is thrown in there, and it's like darker stuff. Obviously it's Metallica, but I can't believe that this got through their critique session. I was blown away, because I decided to I'm going to put a little bit of Iron Maiden into the Metallica posters, just with the chrome logo and the hot pink and whatever, and just see if they would go for it. And I was not expecting them to go for it. And Tim wrote back and said the band actually they apparently put eyes on every poster that they use, and they came back and said, yeah, they approved it. Like, really?
Oh.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. So, but I mean, communication with the band, no, I didn't have any real communication with them. Like, I don't know if Tim did or not, but Tim might have been dealing with their agency or whatever, because when these bands get so big, they become kind of an institution, so you deal with like the company rather than the band itself.
Yeah,
but
of course, yeah.
Yeah. But apparently, I'm told that the band had to put eyes on all this stuff to approve it, and that makes sense. So that's kind of an honor to have your work not only in front of these people, but to be appreciated by them. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and this one here, I mean, going right back to my childhood, He-Man, the Power of Grayskull documentary. My man Rob McCollum, I worked with him. He's the director of this, and he basically gave me his blessing to make this kind of unofficial poster for the documentary, which was lots of fun because, as I said earlier, He-Man is my favorite franchise ever. So that was all like client work, but I also do personal work at the same time. So this is some of the work that I do, again, inspired by 1970s, 1980s, Roger Dean kind of science fiction landscapes and stuff. And this is called the Neo-Wave series, and I did a series called the Overdrive series in 2014. And this is heavily inspired by the music of Synthwave. It's a musical genre, and it's heavily inspired by the 1980s. So, of course, that fit perfectly into my dialogue already. So designing work like this, inspired by the music, was a lot of fun. And that led me to working with a lot of the top names in Synthwave to design album covers and stuff and explore the themes that they wanted to explore, but also exploring the stuff that I wanted to explore as well. So that was a lot of fun. I've worked with a lot of good people, and this is a select few of them. Really, really fun. And let's talk about dream jobs for a second. This was just launched a couple of months ago. I didn't get to design my own action figure, which would have been awesome if I could have done that. But the next best thing is designing box art. And Hasbro hired me to design the Prophet Director Destro box art for the G.I. Joe Classified line, which was an absolute, it was so exciting, and I was so honored and terrified and everything, and I had an absolute blast working on this thing. And again, I sent this off to Hasbro, and I'm like, there's a lot of pink in this. I don't know if they're going to go for it. And they were totally down. This was me and my agent, Alex. We both worked closely with Hasbro on this, and it was a hell of a lot of fun to put this together, and an absolute dream job, because my dream has always been to make action figures, but this was one I could check off. Even though it wasn't my figure, it was a good one to check off. So, right, I forgot to put this in here. All of the work that I'm showing, I also like self-publish my own little art zines. These are like 40-page art zines, and they contain a lot of the work that I have done throughout my whole life, going right from childhood, redrawing characters, and some stories about work that I've done, and current drawings, old drawings like the Ninja Turtles, and some of the comics that I've done. And I ship these inspired by Nintendo Power, shipping it with stickers and cards and that kind of stuff. And issue number 2 actually shipped with my Inktober drawings that I mentioned earlier of all the Image comic characters and stuff. So that's the end of my history. So I hope that gives a little bit. Oh, here's my socials. But I hope that gives a little bit of a synopsis on who I am, and a suitable introduction, I guess.
Yes, no, that was amazing. Blown away from all the works that you've done. It's so creative. And I have a question for you now, because I've been thinking about that, and I want to know what from the 80s or the 70s, but I'm more thinking about the 80s, has inspired you the most. What's the symbol or the sound or anything that captures your attention from the 80s that you see sort of coming back into your work?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I've never been asked that specifically before. It's the broad answer is there's a lot of stuff just from my childhood, like the characters and the franchises, the fantasy of He-Man and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that sticks out to me the most, and the thing that kind of launched me into the current work that I do, is probably Tron, like the Tron movie that came out in the early 80s. Because if you look at the original one, exactly, yeah. And I've seen it way back when I was a kid, and I've only seen it once until very recently. But it's the grids and the kind of wireframeness and the glowing laser lines and that kind of stuff. That was definitely something that is permeated throughout my work for years. And I mean, and one other thing, I guess, is, and this is a bit of a weirder one, a bit more of a designy answer, is television network IDs, like the NBC Peacock with the rainbow, and these animations that I would see back in the 80s when I was a kid, and they had rainbows and lens flares and everything was turning. It was early 3D, but it looked so beautiful and rough, and they had to try really hard to make their logo look different from all the other television stations. And that idea, that visual just is in my blood, and I watched so much TV when I was a kid, probably too much, but yeah, that stuff is just in my blood, and I love it. And it's just, it looks optimistic to me, and I love that idea. You know, I've never been a dark dystopian guy. I've always kind of gravitated toward being happy and excited and whatever. And that stuff, it just reeks of it. So yeah, those two things probably.
Yeah, I mean, Tron, you find me 100% in agreement with you, because that's been a dream for me. Every time I was looking at that grid, I was thinking about the speed and sort of giving a shape to the internet and understanding what that was, you know, and getting inside this crazy world and discovering these characters. So yes, for me, it was similar reaction, you know,
Nice.
and watching different films made on the same sort of theme. I think that was one of the most, I don't know, really well done, you know, really creating that kind of arcade feeling. I don't know if you were going to the arcade as a kid or as a teenager, but I used to, and I used to love that sense of getting lost into that world of crazy lights and games and different characters in these sort of like games, and also finding them into a console game. So my next question to you is, what's your favorite game from the 80s? Which one did you used to play the most?
From the 80s. From the 80s on the, that would be the original.
Or the 90s.
Yeah,
or the
okay.
90s, maybe. Yes, let's think about the 90s.
Let's do two. Okay, from the 80s, that would be for the original Nintendo, and that would be Bionic Commando. That was my favorite game.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely loved it.
Nintendo rocks.
Physics, like whatever. And I think my favorite game in the 90s would be Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely love it. But I mean, if I had to pick a second, oh man, if Mike is watching, he'd agree with this. Street Fighter 2. So I think those two games, like, ooh, man, I played the absolute hell out of both of these, and I still love them to this day. How about you? What was your favorite game going to the arcade?
Well, you know, I'm Italian, so as soon as I got my Nintendo, I used to play Mario all the time. Because
Awesome.
why not?
It's a classic. Yeah, you get the double content Mario. Awesome.
So yes, that was one of my favorite. But yes, as a kid, I used to go to the arcade. I used to live in a small town here in Italy, and that was kind of like the main attraction. So I used to spend all afternoons instead of studying, or, you know, at least doing a bit of studying and then just spending a few hours there. And it was great having those tokens and getting them on the game and waiting for them to last as long as possible to win the game. And, you know, it was just crazy having all these tokens in your hand and playing with other kids. So it was, you know, a time that it's kind of lost now. And actually, this leads me to my next question to you, James, which is about, how did you think the future back then, and how much do you think of that future is actually present these days?
Oh man, yeah. There's only one. Like, I've never.
Is it how you expected it? You know, sometimes you think about, oh yes, I used to imagine this like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. How much of that is actually happening nowadays? I don't know if you ever had that thoughts, you know?
Yeah. There's only one thing though, and this is super stupid, and I don't know if I've ever told anybody this before. So Serena, you've gotten this out of me. I remember I remember when I was a kid, the only thing, like, it might have been like in elementary school, like, what do you see in the future, little project, and you had to write a little paragraph on what you think the future was going to be like. And the only thing that I could come up with, or the thing that I was most looking forward to, was, I think we're going to have silver jackets in the future. And there are silver jackets, like, they look kind of like trashy, but, you know, there's like actual silver puffy jackets, and it's like, man, 7-year-old me was spot on with the jacket.
Yes. I actually used to have one like that, but it was gold. I went for gold.
Gold, right. And it's like, silver would be the one that common folk like me could get, but the gold jacket would be like, oh, like you had to know what you were doing.
Well, I wouldn't wear it now because I think my style has changed over the years. But, you know, when I was like in my 15s, 16s, I was definitely into that.
Yeah. That's awesome. I wish I had a better, like, technological answer, but no, I never really thought much of it. You know, flying cars is the standard answer, but
oh yeah,
Nah, I never really thought of it. I was too wrapped up in what was going on He-Man than I was to think about the future. So
Yeah, I mean, Back to the Future was actually one of my favorite movies, that I was dreaming about flying cars and going back into the past or the future. And, that for me was, yeah, a new dimension.
yeah.
Did that movie influence you in some ways, or was it just marginal?
Oh no, yeah, it's right there. And I mean, the DeLorean actually has become a staple or an icon within the synthwave community. So every time there's a music video that involves a car, it's either a Lamborghini Countach or it's a DeLorean. And so yeah, like Back to the Future was a staple of my childhood. Like Back to the Future and Ghostbusters and all that stuff. Like it was always Indiana Jones, Star Wars, all of that stuff. If it was a popular movie for kids, then me and my buddy Mike were probably into it. Yeah, so Back to the Future was so good. Love it.
Yeah, yes, 100%. I want to now address some of the comments and questions because there's so many of them, and I just want to answer some of the questions you guys have been asking. So somebody is asking how to get your magazine and how often do you ship it?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think that Ronan's here. Hey, what's up, Ronan? I know Ronan from the Twitter. Right on, man. Yeah, I think the link is scrolling across the bottom here. And if you see store.signalnoise.com, if you drop over there,
okay.
issue 1 and 2 is in the store, and issue number 3 is in production. It was supposed to be released in March, but everything went wrong. So I'm still looking to get that out, and it's like 85% complete, and then I'll be shipping it off. But if anybody's looking for Off the Grid issue 1 and 2, they're available. Store.signalnoise.com if you want to check those out. 40 pages each, so that's 80 pages of a lot of fun art.
That's a good amount of work.
Yeah, and I didn't even scratch the surface, Serena. Like all of these books you see above my head here, this is my archive. So that's all of my drawings going back to 1988, like all of them. I have, like, I'm one of the weird freak accidents that just has all of my drawings throughout elementary school, junior high, and high school, and all my digital work. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to pour through to get into the pages of Off the Grid. So I got a lot of work to do.
Wow. I'm so impressed because I recently made a move from London to Italy and had to pack a lot of things and, boxing and all of that. Which was fun, but I had to leave a lot of things behind. So I'm actually very impressed that you kept so meticulously all the things, all the drawings we do. It's very impressive. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I blame my dad for that. My dad, one day he walked into my room and he gave me a big envelope and he said, "Hey bud, why don't you, instead of like having your drawings all over your room making a mess, why don't you put them all in this envelope? That way you can keep track of them and have them all in one place." And that was a ploy to get me to clean up my room, but also that was the first time that I saw all my drawings in one place, and I just kept doing it from then. I mean, that was 1987, and it just kept track of it all.
No, that's great. And it's good that you took that habit from your dad.
Yeah,
I wish I would have done the same, but I think I've left so many books and so many things in different countries over the past year, but hopefully, that's my legacy that's going to be left with others.
Right, of course. It's noble.
Yeah. There's another question from Ronin asking about Far Cry art. If you talked about it already, if you want to share a few words about it.
Well, Ronan, if you get, I think issue 1 of the zine, you'll get a little story about Far Cry. But yeah, I was hired by my man Dean Evans. He was a former creative director at UbiSoft, and he hired me to. He basically called me up. He was referred to me by my friend Jason Eisner, a director that came from my hometown of Dartmouth. And and he told me the synopsis of Blood Dragon, and it was everything you would expect. It's lasers and Uzis and Panthers and DeLoreans and Tron grids and 80s action movies, and we were best friends almost immediately because we were both into the exact same thing. So it was a lot of fun. Everything I sent to Dean, he loved, and he would send back like enthusiastic emails. And his most famous one, just in all caps, said, "More effing lightning," because I sent him this thing and it had lots of lightning in it, and he was just like, "Put more lightning in it," and I was like, "That's the best feedback I have ever gotten." So,
sounds like it. Wow. Yes.
yeah, lots of fun, man. Shout out to Dean, man. Dean's the man.
We have Amanda asking you about inspiration when thinking about the design of Synthwave Broken Sun.
Oh yeah,
What's the main inspiration?
Main inspiration. So the Broken Sun, and this is a big story that goes across the synthwave scene. It was really weird. In 2014, actually previously to 2014, I started incorporating that sun with the broken lines in it into my work because it references like 1970s surfer shirts, and the California license plate had a similar sun on it. It's supposed to be a sun with heat waves. That's what it's supposed to symbolize in one color, so you can print it on t-shirts. So I really liked that symbol, and I started incorporating it into my work in 2012, 2013, but it wasn't until 2014 that I released the Overdrive series that I showed in the first little deck that I had. And that series just kind of caught fire because the series is inspired by the sound of synthwave, but then the aesthetic that was explored in the Overdrive series ended up getting adopted by the entire synthwave scene. So if you Google synthwave art right now, it all looks like my Overdrive series, or most of it does. And that was something that I didn't see coming at all, because I just wanted to use this kind of pink to orange gradient Broken Sun because I thought it looked cool. It looked 80s, combining it with a Tron grid. And yeah, so that was the inspiration from it. Yeah, it was just, I would see it here and there in the past, and just decided to thrust it right make it the hero of a piece of art. And it was really cool because the synthwave scene, they were into it. They dug it, which was really cool.
That's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think we got, much background about all of that and your inspiration. So that's so cool. There's one more actually very interesting about your technique, I would say, which is about what is your preferred workflow, paper first, then digital, or does it vary?
Oh yeah,
good one. First. Thank you for asking this one.
Right on. Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I got my my sketchbook right here. It's always
nice.
And yeah, I'll just show off something and show you where stuff typically starts. Let me get a good page here. God, I got a lot of wrestler drawings in here. Okay, here we go. Right. This is typically how things start. So thumbnails, really, really rough thumbnails. And I would just go to a pub and just kind of get my ideas down. And really rough, not spending a lot of time on them. Some of them aren't even inked, so I don't know if they show up any. But these here are like yet to be explored ideas. But this is where it starts. And so I can rough out the idea, and I can just get stuff out of my head really quickly. And it allows me to get away from screens. It allows me to get away from the computer, get away from a phone. And I could just go somewhere like a coffee shop or a pub and just kind of get my ideas down and let that flow a little bit. If I like a thread of content, then I'll kind of make a couple more thumbnails along that line to see if there might be a series there, or just refining the idea. Doing that, and then once I have an idea that I like in that jumble of thumbnails, I'll then start doing a digital sketch. So I'll go into I'll go into Photoshop and I'll kind of rough out using the Cintiq. Throw some colors in there to see if the colors actually work and the composition is working. And if I like where the sketch is going, I'll then start building all my elements in Illustrator, getting those Illustrator elements into Photoshop, and then doing an overall texture and paint run. So that's like the broad stroke of my creative process. And that's how I've been working for probably 7 or 8 years now. It took a while to get to that point where I understand my own process, because process evolves as much as a personal artist's style and interest and exploration. So refining your style is something that takes time. And yeah, so that's generally it.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you actually go to the cafe or to the pub to draw? Is that something you do every day, or yeah?
I would love to do it every day, but no, I used to do it more frequently, obviously, than these days. But no, I would go. I used to try to do it at least once a week, and I'm not talking about going to the bar and having 5 drinks and going home sloshed. I'm talking about going there and having a beer over the course of an hour, and just enough to kind of reset your head. You know, like sketching and drawing is like meditation to me. It's been it's been very calming, and it's been my first love for years. You know, like I'm a digital artist by trade, but drawing has always been my first love. I've been doing it my entire life, and I still do it to this day. I'm not known for drawing, but that's fine. It does have an important place in my process. So yeah, like once a week, I would try to get away and do some drawing, and and I'm always trying to do it more, just to keep my creative juices flowing. You know.
Now, this question for me is so interesting, because every time I speak to an artist every week, I get to know more about the process and the way things are kind of like coming to life, you know, and I'm so eager to learn how everyone functions in terms of like dealing with creativity and brainstorming ideas and sort of like getting them out. So I think that's, to me as a curator and somebody that is learning more and more about art and artists, that's so fascinating. So it's interesting to know that. And how are you coping now with COVID? That I know it's keeping us all indoors, but do you still manage to stay creative? I would say yes, because you've done really well. But I would love to know how this whole situation has sort of impact on your creative process.
Yeah, it's right now I'm on like a I'm on an up, I guess, right now, because I'm working on a lot of stuff that I love to work on, and the creativity is kind of flowing. But honestly, Serena, it's up and down. It's been like, for me, I've been very constant in always being enthusiastic about creativity and art, and just making stuff that I want to work on, and having fun doing it, and researching, watching old cartoons and that kind of stuff. But, you know, since this isolation situation has come about, it's been really difficult. And me and my wife, Naomi, she's a branding designer and graphic designer. And we both are experiencing kind of the same things. Like sometimes we are really into what we're doing, and sometimes we hit kind of a low. And it's been tough, you know, and it's trying to keep routine, trying to get outside, get exercise. It all kind of factors into how creative you can be, because for me, I have to be happy in order to be creative. And it's, you know, 2020 has been a real son of a bitch, you know, in terms of trying to be.
You said it, yes.
Yeah, I mean, trying to be, and everybody, we're all in the exact same boat. And, you know, we're all trying to be as optimistic as we can about all of this. And yeah, for me personally, it has been up and down, you know, and I just happen to be, I happen to find a place very recently where I'm happy to be. And, you know, and I know we're going to get into this eventually, but, you know, crypto has been a doorway for me, I guess, to explore something new. And it's actually factored into my optimism quite a bit. And it took a little while to come around, but it's factored in, and it's been great. And I have to give a big shout out to David for that. You know, David has helped me and Gav and our buddies Matt Griffin and Chris Skinner as well, and our buddy Genuine Human. I got to give a shout out to my whole crypto crew buddies. You know, David.
Yes, let's give them a shout, because they all deserve a big shout. Absolutely,
and I'm gonna put all of their links on Twitter, and so everybody here can check out their work.
Yeah,
immensely talented guys. But I mean, we got to give a big shout out to David, because David has helped all of us and answered all of our dumb questions for the last month and a half. And yeah, and it's really helped present something new at a time when I personally needed something new. So
yeah. 100%. And I think if you're happy for me to share the works you have in KnownOrigin, I would love to have a quick overview of the works. Does that sound good to you?
Absolutely. You want me to share the screen again?
Oh, you can if you want, or I've got it as well. So, but if you're happy to, I'll be happy for you to talk us through some of the recent works you had on KnownOrigin. And I actually know somebody here in the chat, Joey, here we go, was asking, what's new for you? What are the new projects? And I think the works on KnownOrigin could definitely be one of these topics.
Yeah, I outlined that exact thing, Joey. Joey's one of the Signalnoise sheriffs, and yeah, I outlined that exact thing in my slides. So you want me to just run through this real quick?
Oh, yes. Oh,
okay. Oh,
sorry.
Yeah.
Too early. Here we go.
All right. So, sorry, this is the other site. So the Overdrive series, this is what I was talking about earlier, and this is actually available on Maker's Place right now as some NFTs if anybody's interested in those. But these here are the KnownOrigin pieces. So this is the Neowave series, and I did a couple prior to that are arcade inspired, Serena, like we were talking about, and some Game
My
Boy.
favorites.
Yeah, and yeah, so this is the stuff that I've posted previously on KnownOrigin, but I put together a little bit of a little presentation on what I'm doing now. So in 2013, I started creating these character prints, and they were mostly wrestlers and superheroes. I did actual physical prints. These are all like the wrestling prints that I did. I did a lot of these character-based prints, and it's a templated body that I just dressed as different characters that I love from my childhood and from pop culture and that kind of stuff. And but what I wanted to, the problem with these guys is that they were all franchise based, and I wanted to illustrate my own characters. So I went right back to my childhood. I showed this slide earlier to you, and these are wrestlers that I created when I was 10 or 11 years old. And I wanted to create those guys in the form of those character prints that I was doing. So this guy's name's the Brain Basher. And what I did, this little idea of pulling characters from my childhood and re-illustrating them kind of blossomed into a sprawling project that I'm working on right now. And this relates to crypto art, but first I have to tell the story of this thing. So here's kind of the evolution of Brain Basher. So he started back in 1987, and here he is in 2020. And I just showed 3 of these. This is scrap metal. Some of these characters have gone through drastic changes because when you're a little kid that watches wrestling, you only draw men. So we had to switch up that for this project. And this is Tiger Alley. Tiger Alley is like my #1 fighter guy. And I wrote, Naomi and I started building a world around these characters. And in order to build a world, I had to flesh out a little bit of the story. So I actually wrote a 6-page comic kind of explaining what this world is, the world of Starrcade. And these are all characters that I developed when I was a little kid that I repurposed for this world. And Starrcade was kind of born out of this idea. Now, what is Starrcade? It is a card game. It is a physical card game that me and my wife Naomi and our friends Jack and Lucas are putting together. I'm doing all the art. Lucas is doing all the game mechanics. Naomi is doing all the branding and all the typography and color coding, iconography, and Jack is helping us with socials and content and public outreach. And this has been absolutely fun because this falls directly into my childhood. I'm pulling inspirations from He-Man and Transformers and G.I. Joe and all the stuff that I loved as a kid. And it's a battle-based game, something like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, where there are 2 fighters in the arena, and you can do all kinds of stuff using equipment and weapons to really mess them up and beat them up, really. And so any of this seems like a sales pitch, but anybody that wants to check it out, Starrcade.com is our holder page, and we have an email sign up that you can check out if you want to see. We're going to be releasing stuff on the Starrcade project literally this week. So it's going to be, it's really timely.
Exciting.
Yeah,
wow.
Really exciting. We are stoked. We are stoked. We've been working on this actually on and off since 2016. So this is a long time coming. And to evolve these characters and to build their backstories and stuff, it's been so much fun. And but all of this relates to crypto art, which is weird. And crypto art is new, but let's see how this relates. So let's go back to these character prints. I had a lot of fun doing these, but again, they were franchise characters. So I came up with the idea that I wanted to develop my own characters and present them in the crypto space as illustrated action figures. That's the idea. So like anything, going back to the process, I started my sketchbook. So I started developing body types. Like what is a good body type, like a good standard action hero, action figure body type that would look kind of aesthetically pleasing that'll sit in a square really well. So I ended up getting a design that I liked. I gave it a test run, just like, okay, this is something I can work with. And this is a little character design I just came up with at the office one day just to test. So it worked. I put it into Illustrator and I started doing all the vectors. I got all the arms and the legs and the head right. To start off, I just did a standard male and female body type. So I could just start messing around with the form, really. Printed off those body types and started illustrating right over top of them. So I had these are some characters that I created just for this project. And there's some more. Again, now the guy on the far right here, you might recognize him from the Lego Movie 2 designs. So this guy, his name is Ran Damage, and he's based on a specific wrestler. And I'll let people in the comments section shout out what wrestler he's based on. They'll know. So developing all these characters, and again, I've always had the dream of creating my own action figures ever since I was a little kid, but I don't know 3D yet, and I don't know how to make toys, and it's really expensive. So this is the crypto art is the next best thing, and I can't wait. So I can't wait to get these things done. But I'm presenting the process in real time. So just a few days ago, I got the sketch into Illustrator, laid in some vectors, and having a hell of a lot of fun. I came up with the name Nukes for my little action figure toy line, Signalnoise Nukes, because Nukes has never been used as an action figure line, which is surprising. So here's sort of where, this is sort of where I am with Wave 1. So we got the Skull Biker, we got Ran Damage, we got the Outslider, and Spikester. Spikester is actually a character that I developed back when I was 11 years old. So she's been repurposed for the Nukes line to be this kind of action figure, which and also I got to give a big shout out to my buddy Ben Jedry over in Halifax. Me and Ben, every time we hang out, we talk always about action figures, and he's helping me select names and backstories for some of these characters, which is fun because he has the same love of the 1980s and 1980s action figure franchises like I do. So this is number 1. A couple of days ago, I ran it through. Gave it a quick paint treatment in Photoshop to see, like, okay, these characters they can be rendered properly. But 3-4 days ago, I decided I can't release these as illustrated action figures. I just can't do it because they'll look like flat representation of the thing that I'm trying to make. So I've started learning 3D. Like, that's what crypto art has driven me to do. I started learning how to model in 3D so I can take these action figure designs to the next level and actually make them look like they are real action figures. And that's, to me, that's closer to achieving that dream of actually having action figures. If I can represent them on screen and they're 3D, that is the best way of executing the Nuke series. So I've just started doing that, and it's going great. And we're going to have to see where that goes. And the ultimate destination is, if we can generate enough interest in the Nuke series and in Starrcade, is to have these two kind of franchises cross-pollinating. So fighters from the Starrcade world can get their own Nukes releases in the crypto art space, and characters that I develop for Nukes might end up in the Starrcade arena, and you can play them as a fighter within the game. So ultimately, this is where I want to end up. I want to have this art kind of cross-pollinating between both of these, because these two logos represent the Signalnoise universe to me, and there's an entire world waiting to be explored. And I just kind of put this screen in here just to show this is what Signalnoise looks like. This is the kind of art that I'm creating right now, and this is my attempt at trying to recreate the feeling of collectability when I was a little kid. The colorful things that I would create, the ephemera, the cards and the stickers and the comics and the Nintendo Power magazines and the toys. I'm just trying to recreate that now at the age of 43. And so this is where I am right now. And I just wanted to put that in there. And I also have a YouTube channel that I'm going to be documenting all of this stuff, because it's all part of the same universe, the Signalnoise universe. I got a lot of tales to tell and world to build, so I need my vehicles to do that. and there's just my socials again. So that's the new project, I guess. I'm just going to switch back to you here, Serena, so I can see you.
Yeah. This is super exciting. Thank you so much for sharing so much content tonight. I think this has been one of the fullest behind the screens we've done, because I first of all, every time I do this, I learn so much from meeting people and talking to everyone watching live. And it's been wonderful to hear about all your background stories and how you got to develop these characters' personalities and how did they end up from paper into a screen and taking life. Now you're talking about 3D and creating movements and creating, giving real life to characters that you had in mind, and having crypto allowing that for collecting and, just giving it a new life. So yeah, I think it's been such an interesting journey. And, one of the final questions, I think it's about asking you whether you knew about the NFT art scene before jumping in, and what was the thing that finally made you take the leap?
Thanks, Lane. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it was funny because David, God bless David. He was reaching out to me, like he said, in 2017, I think, and I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Honestly, I had no I honestly thought, and this is going to make me look super dumb. I thought crypto art was people purchasing one-of-a-kind wallpapers for their phone.
That's an interesting view, because everyone still nowadays, when you talk about crypto art, they look at you and everyone has a complete different idea. I think outside the community, which is growing, it's growing really fast, but it's so fascinating to hear the stories.
Absolutely, and in the Discord chat that I have with Genuine Human and Matt and Chris and Gav, we all went through kind of the same cycle. We didn't understand it, and to dive into the scene, you have to almost rewire how you think about art, because up until now, and this is what crypto art represents to me anyway. Crypto art offers a window for designers and artists like myself who have been creating digital art for a decade and a half. Up until now, that artwork that I created has only represented promotion to me. You put it on Instagram, you put it on Twitter, and you hope a client sees it and they hire you to work on whatever they want to hire you for, and that's how you earn money. There was never an in-between, and crypto art is that in-between. Crypto art means that I can create digital art and then sell that digital art and potentially make a living. That space has not existed in my career ever. And you have to rewire your brain when you hear about it, because it's so different. And finally, there's a medium that favors the digital artist. It just didn't exist prior to that. So to answer your question, how I got into the scene, it's all Brendan Dawes' fault. And I don't know if he's still here in the chat room, but he got into
it. I think we talked about this. We did a live with Brendan and Gav, and everyone sort of answered similar question on how they got started in the crypto art space. And it's been so interesting to hear from everybody what they thought crypto art was and what made them sort of jump in. And
it was all Brendan. Brendan did it, and then we were like, well, Brendan is a smart guy, so let's talk, because we're all friends, me, Gav, and Brendan. So we reached out to him, we're just like, so he had to answer all of our
nothing, right? I think Gav said the same. Gav said to me, we were doing the behind the screens with him, that Brendan sort of talked them through the crypto art space, and so sort of triggered that interest in a way.
Absolutely, yeah. And Brendan's a wonderful man for dealing with me and Gav and our dumbass questions. For he was really generous. We had a couple of calls, and he was wonderful in explaining what it is, so we understood it and what to do to get involved. So that was really great. Big shout out to Brendan, man. He's a wonderful gentleman.
Yes, I second that. No, it's great. It's amazing to see how this is actually helping the space during these challenging times, and how people are actually gathering together like tonight, having a lovely, friendly conversation about art and the way that we can all support one another. So I massively appreciate that David KnownOrigin team has been putting together this series alongside with MoCDA. We're very much in support of promoting art and artists the best we can. So I really want to take a moment to thank you so much for joining me tonight during this Behind the Screens. We learned so much, and your art is amazing. So I just want to tell everybody you can find the work on KnownOrigin for Signalnoise, and yes, look out for new projects coming up, because it feels like there's a lot getting ready. And somebody was asking about the YouTube channel before we go, so if you don't mind to share that.
Sure, yeah. The YouTube channel is just youtube.com/Signalnoise. And, I did a lot of videos earlier this year, and, COVID happened and they kind of slowed down, but it's starting to get back on track. And I just released a video a few days ago talking about the Nukes project. So if you want more information on that and see some images and stuff, check that out. I'm in basically the exact same space. It looks exactly the same.
Amazing. We can watch the videos, and please get in touch on Twitter, Instagram. All social media links will be available, and keep getting those questions coming, because it's so wonderful to see people talking to artists and meeting the real artists behind the screen. So it's been a pleasure talking to you tonight. Thank you once again, and to KnownOrigin and MoCDA for putting this together. And yes, thank you everybody for being with us tonight, asking questions and sharing your thoughts. It's been fantastic.
It's been great. It's been my pleasure, Serena. Thank you very much. Yeah, and thank you everybody for showing up. I see a lot of familiar names in there, and you all rule. So thank you. Thanks, Dave.
We do. Wonderful. Have a good night, everybody. And yes, thank you. It's been great.
Thanks, guys. Walk on.
See you soon.